to a few things. So this is not a tarot card reading. It's just a testimony about sometimes the things that you thought you wanted aren't what's best for you, and you need to allow the universe to do their job. So I met someone about 7 years ago. I met someone. At first, I didn't like this person, and there were red flags going off all over the place. But this person was very, very persistent. As you guys recall, I mentioned before that I have never been in a relationship that I've actually wanted to be in. That's never happened. So how it goes is, because I'm very much a loner, I do not mind being single. In fact, I like it. It's something fun for me. I thrive when I'm single. I'm very much a go-getter. I like to be single. I have my whole life. But I've been married and divorced several times. Because men would meet me and I would be like, well, no, I can't go out with you. No, I can't. And then they'd be like, okay, I'll see you at 7 o'clock. I'd be like, no, I can't go. They're like, okay, well, what's your favorite restaurant? I would be like, whatever. They'd be like, okay, talk to you soon. And I thought they got the message, like, I'm not going out with you. They'd be like, oh, I'm out front. I got your favorite food from your favorite restaurant. Get it before it gets cold. And then I'd be like, well, thank you. Well, do you want to eat with me? So I would feel guilty. It was all a game. And then, next thing you know, they'd be showing up all the time with books. I'd say, I like Dr. Phil. They'd show up with all the Dr. Phil books. I'd say, I like a certain musician or a certain group or band. They would come and bring me like all of their, their greatest hits, everything. They would just be very, very thoughtful and nice. So I'm not bashing or anything. I'm just setting you guys up for, you guys are like, well, if you didn't like him, why did you continue? So that's how all of my relationships have gone my entire life. I've never dated someone and thought, oh, I like him and he likes me. Let's go from here. It's usually, I don't like him and he chases me down until I say yes, kind of thing. Yeah. So I know now that that's a red flag and that's not good. At the time, I thought, oh, how persistent or how kind. They're paying attention to my wants, desires, and needs. Oh, how thoughtful. Yeah. But anyway, so enough of that. So the relationship with the illegal immigrant from El Salvador, 7 years ago. So I met this guy. There were red flags immediately. I didn't really like this guy at all. I tried to end things with him several times. And then for some reason, I'd end up allowing the situation again and again and again. So I would allow the situation with this illegal immigrant from El Salvador. No offense to illegal immigrants and no offense to people from El Salvador. He was, normal looking. There was nothing too spectacular about him. His bedroom activities were not, too spectacular either. There was just nothing, nothing spectacular about this man. So I eventually started catching feelings for him. I eventually fell in love, caught feelings for this guy. That wasn't really a nice person. And that was involved in a lot of negative things that I wasn't aware of until the end. That's as soon as I figured it out, that's when I took off. I ran away. So this guy, I uprooted a lot of things for this guy. I left my place to move into his place. I moved all of my belongings to his place. I, put everything up, changed my mailing address, did a lot of things, uprooted myself for this guy, which is something I've never done before, something I would never do again. But I uprooted a lot of things for this guy. Only for this guy to kind of make a fool of me. So we would go places and he'd be looking at, all sorts of women with no, please nobody take offense. Skinny women, overweight women, elderly women, young, 13, 14-year-old young women. He's staring them down, licking his lips at them and just being completely and totally disrespectful to me. And I was just shocked because nobody had ever treated me like that. Nobody had ever disrespected me like that ever in my whole life. Never, never, never. And they never will again. I will never allow that again. So you live and you learn. So I'm trying to talk to this dude. I'm like, what the hell? Why would you do something like that to me? I'm you see men trying to hit on me all day, every day. And I never even look their way. I don't even acknowledge them. Because everywhere we would go, men would be whistling, they'd be blatantly disrespectful in his face. And he would just, act like nothing was going on. And so would I. I mean, I didn't want him to fist fight with the people, but yeah, everywhere we would go, his friends would all be complimenting him like, dang, you got that? Whoa. Dang. Like, where'd you meet her? Does she have a sister? So, which of course looks are not everything, but I just had never had a man ever disrespect me like that. Even though I've been with some, wild characters, they would never were disrespectful at all. So those were the ways that he was disrespectful to me, just blatantly just being disrespectful. He never called me a name, never like assaulted me, didn't do anything like that, but he was involved in some dangerous activity that I did not want to be involved in, because when you're involved in those things, it's a matter of time before somebody gets hurt. So once I found out he was involved in, because he would disappear like 3 days out of the month, and then come back with a lot of money and whatnot. So I didn't know what he was doing. I still don't know what he was doing. All I know is if it seemed fishy, it seemed fishy. He told me he was a landscaper. He had a lawnmower in the back of his truck, so I believed him. Like, okay, why would somebody be riding around with landscaping gear in the back of their vehicle if they were not a landscaper, right? So I, during a full moon one time when we were together, it was like August of a year, I think 7 years ago or something like that, 6-7 years ago. We both took a loose leaf piece of paper and wrote everything that we wanted. He read mine, but I didn't read his. So I don't even know what he put on his list. But from front to back, I went out to the full moon and I talked to God and the angels, and I asked, and I got every single thing on that list except for him. I got everything on my list except for him. And when it ended, I was pretty upset. I went my way, I disappeared, changed my phone number, did a lot of things to get away from him so that I would not be found and so he could leave me alone. So for all these years, I've been thinking to myself, like, I got everything on the list, but not him. And I know I shouldn't have been thinking this way. It seems a little petty and a little ego driven, but I'm like, God granted me with some pretty miraculous things. I got everything that was on that list, and I covered that list from front to back, every line. Like, that whole front and back was filled up with things. I didn't even think I would get any of them, but I got all of them, interestingly enough. I got everything that was on my list. So I went out to the full moon in August, and by April, I had realized I had gotten everything on the list. Manifestation really works. So all these years I was kind of sad and kind of stewing on the fact, what was it about me that he seemed to want everybody but me? What did I I bent over backwards. I did a lot of things. I went out of my way. I really tried. And I was just thinking to myself, what was I doing wrong? What did I do wrong? I didn't do anything wrong. God didn't let me have that person because that person would have blocked everything else that was on my list. That person was not for me. That person didn't like me. That person wanted bad things for me. And they tried so hard to create terror and drama and tower moments in my life. Laughed about it that I was uprooted. They thought it was so funny. The illegal immigrant from El Salvador and his family, they just thought it was hilarious. Because at the time, the guy was doing real well financially. He's leaving town 3 days out of the month, making thousands and thousands of dollars. And I'm leaving just with my car packed up and my stuff in storage, So of course, I got the bad end of the deal. I had to start all over again from scratch. So it was fine because God had a plan for me and knew I had to get the hell away from that person in order to get everything else that was on my list. I had to get away from him. So now, all these years, I'm thinking this dude is, living his best life, all this stuff. He made contact with me I believe it was it was like the day after Christmas in December. This past December, guys. This past December, after all these years, to tell me that he's sorry and he regrets everything he ever did to me. Okay. This dude, and looks are not everything. This dude looks like hell. He is broke. He's without a vehicle. This dude is living in somebody else's broken down RV with mold and leaks and no water, with no money, you know, begging people to have scraps of their leftover dinners. Then he proceeds to tell me about a relationship. So he told me right after we broke up, he got back together with his baby mama. Literally, like, no, like, please nobody take offense. I'm just telling you guys for the sake of the story. The woman literally looks like Quasimodo with 5 inches of hair on one side because she shaves one side of her head. Like, legit. So he's acting as though I'm not enough physically. Just to go back to Quasimodo, which is fine. I mean, no offense to Quasimodos out there. No offense. This girl cheated on him when she was always cheating on him. The kids that supposedly they have together, they're not even his. He told me he found out DNA 2 years ago that none of the 3 are his. But anyway, that's another story. It's not funny, but it's like, dang. Then he proceeds to tell me that she and her new boyfriend set him up to be robbed, beat him up, stole all of his money, then stole all of his furniture and all of his belongings, and left his door wide open when he was out of town. He came back to that. So then he lost his place soon after that. Then he proceeds to tell me about how he started dating this girl that he thought he wanted to be with. And she ended up staring at every guy she could, was hitting on all sorts of men, old, young, fat, skinny, tall, short, you know, homeless, not homeless, that she just was interested in everybody but him. And then she even got him dragged into criminal activity, and now he's fighting a case and hoping to not be deported. Interesting. I told him, like, you know, not everything, but a lot of this kind of rings a bell. Isn't that what you did to me? Isn't everything that you just described what you did to me? He goes, well, I never thought about it like that, but I guess you're right. I'm like, oh, ding, ding, ding. Yeah. So then I'm like, well, I'm on vacation right now, seeing my family. He goes, oh, where are you? Want to come pick me up and I'll go with you? We can just get back together now. I'm like, no, we cannot. I didn't want you when I met you, and I for sure don't want you now. No, that ship has sailed. You had a gold mine with me. He goes, yeah, I know. Everybody laughs at me because they knew if I would have stuck with you, my life would have been really good. Well, duh. So then one of his finger, like, so we're FaceTiming and talking this past December. So guys, you know what? I'm drug free. I don't do drugs. Have never been involved with drugs. Not for me. Not something I want to be involved with. I'm anti-drug. I come from a family of drug addicts. I've seen what drugs can do. I will not be affiliated with it at all whatsoever. It's the biggest turnoff for me. It makes me sick. It makes me angry. My oldest brother died of a drug overdose. And, you know, I can't really blame my family members for that, but I wonder if he hadn't been exposed to all of that, if maybe, you know, he wouldn't have gone down that route. But we'll never know, right? We'll never know. But rest in peace to my brother. So the illegal immigrant from El Salvador, you know, he's talking to me and he's moving his hands while he talks, much like I do. And I noticed that his pinky fingernail is as long as mine. And I know from movies, if men with long, just one fingernail is super long, that means it's for drugs, for dope, right? So I'm like, you're using, you're using. He goes, no, my nails have always been long. I was like, you never had nails like that when we were together, ever. ever. I would have clipped that. No. Then he pulls out cigarettes. I'm like, you smoke cigarettes? He goes, yeah, I always smoke cigarettes. I was like, you never smoked a cigarette the whole time we were together. I'm allergic to cigarette smoke. Even if you smoked a week ago, and I would still be able to smell it in your vehicle and on your clothes. You didn't smoke. He goes, yeah, I did. He goes, but I would only do it when I was out of town or when I was away from you, when we would break up. Because I knew that you didn't like smokers, so I would stop smoking for you. Then, like, halfway through our conversations, he would be like slurring real bad. I'm like, what's going on? He goes, oh, I had shots and liquor and beer. I was like, you did? I was like, dang. He goes, I was always a drunk. I was like, you didn't do that with me? And then he starts to explain, yeah, I would only do that when we would break up or when I was out of town. But that's who I really am. I was like, oh, how nice. So just think of all of that stuff. I could not have had a good life with someone like him. He has too much bad karma, and the bad karma is piling on him. If I would have stayed with him, all of his bad karma would have rubbed off onto me. So when you guys think, oh, we could have been so great together, we could have been so wonderful together. No, God knows better. The universe knew better. Let them go. But I do have to tell you, like, getting this realization and this confirmation, because I never asked my cards about him. I never thought about him. After I took off, I never, I was just like, oh my God, like, thank you, God, for taking out the trash. Yeah, I did sometimes wonder about what I had done wrong. Like, was there something about me that caused this to not work? But I wasn't thinking about him. I was thinking about, like, me and maybe, like, next time around, what can I do differently, that kind of thing. Nobody's ever treated me as bad as that guy has since, after that. So nobody before him and nobody after that. That was, like, my worst experience. Then another ex contacted me, Slick Willie, the oil field guy that you guys have heard me talk about. So that guy I was madly in love with. I will admit it. I was a fool for that guy. I was so, oh my gosh, I was so in love with him. Like, I really, because I've got such trust issues, it's hard for me to see forever in anyone. Like, my mind just doesn't go there because I'm like, eventually we'll break up. Eventually it won't work. Eventually I'll have to run away from them. Eventually I'll break up with them. Eventually I'll change my phone number. Eventually, I don't put too much, trust in that. But with this other guy, Slick Willie, oh man, I was head over heels. I could not see myself with anybody else. He was cheating on me the whole time. Like, when we were together, he was like Mr. Perfect, Prince Charming, like literally Prince Charming, was so good to me. But then as soon as he would get offshore, I would find his fake Facebook accounts where he's trying to hit up women, trying to buy women on the internet to meet up with when he gets offshore, to meet up with as soon as he gets off, because he's got to drive home to his annoying girlfriend, me, the annoying girlfriend. He's making up lies to his family members, doing all sorts of crazy stuff. When I would find out, he'd be like, just please stay with me. Just go to my bank account and take out as much money as you want. You can have all of my money. Just go take it out. I'd be like, well, you're a pathological liar. So I want you to email it to me, and I want you to text it to me. And I want it on video. I want it not video, but it was like the voice, not mail, but the voice record, because he's a liar. He's the kind of guy that would be like, oh, I didn't say you could take the money. If I try to leave him, well, I'll just press charges. I know him already. So I would have him do all that. And I'd be like, so you said I can take as much as I want out, right? Because I was pissed off at him. So I would go and take all of his money out. So sometimes it would be $10,000, sometimes it would be like $15,000, whatever. So then he would get back from offshore and he would have no money, not a dollar, from the whole time he worked offshore, because he was cheating on me while he was offshore. So eventually I took off. I ran away from him because he couldn't stop cheating. I think he had like an addiction. I think he had an sex addiction because he could not stop. Like, I don't want to get too raunchy here, but like literally we would go for like, 6-7 hours almost daily. Like, so I'm like, dang, like, what am I doing wrong here? How am I not satisfying this guy? Like, we're doing everything that he wants to do. I'm doing everything I can. And of course, guys, yes, it's not all about SEX, but I'm a Pisces, and us Pisces women, we aim to please our men. We're just like that. We like to make our men happy. We just do. We put our men on a pedestal. We just do. So if you're in, you are treated like a king for sure. So, but it was more than just that. Like I thought best friends. I thought we loved each other. I thought we were happy. I thought. So again, back to God removes people I would have none of the blessings that I have now if I would have stayed with that guy. That guy would have destroyed my life. And there were I don't even want to go into all the other things, but he was like referring to me as racial slurs to his family members through text messages, telling his friends weird things, that like just making up, I don't know why. Like I would feel embarrassed bad-mouthing the person that I'm engaged to, because I mean, what happens when you see when everybody sees us together? Like we would go when he'd be home from offshore, we would go to the place where he does his motocross. So he would take his dirt bike and we'd go over there, and everybody that he's bad-mouthing me to is there, and they're like looking at him and looking at me like, wait a minute, I thought you said that but of course they're not saying anything because they're being respectful, but they're like, hey, Jamie, what's up? Like, hey, wild weekend last weekend, huh? I'm like, well, what do you mean? They're like, I don't know. Well, it seems like you guys I was like, no, we had a pretty good night. We rented movies and we stayed home, and, that's what we did. They're like, really? Like, yeah, why? And then I put two and two together. So as soon as I could, I checked the phone, his text messages. Yep. He was spewing lies, making up shit to people. So anyway, so he was doing a lot of that stuff. Like I would be embarrassed to be saying the things he was saying about me and then showing up with me. Like I would be embarrassed if I was dating a guy and I told my family and friends some of the worst things ever about the person I'm dating, and then I bring them over to family functions. Like, that's just nuts. But that's what narcissists do. That's what they do. So this guy was a big-time narcissist. At the time, I didn't know what narcissism was. But now looking back, I know for sure he's big-time narcissist. So, moral of the story, this guy reached out to me a few weeks ago. Of course, well, he's been reaching out to me for years. But he reached out a few weeks ago with, like, a fake email. Of course, he's got a nickname. It's, Slick Willie, $1 bill 454. So he emailed, nobody else would know that. Like, nobody else would know that. So he emailed me from a fake email saying that he promises to never be a cheater again, that he promises to do right. But if you go to his Facebook page, he's clearly living with a woman and her 2 kids. So he's still up to the same dirty tricks he always was. He'll never change. He will never change. That relationship could not work out because I could not, there would be no way for me to be happy or succeed if I would have had either of those guys in my life. There's no way. So please, when God takes out the trash, simply say thank you. It may hurt. It may not make sense. Let them go. Let them go. I'm just glad that God didn't have me in these relationships for even a day or an hour longer than I was. With the Willie guy, I was so sad and so brokenhearted for at least, when I got with the illegal immigrant from El Salvador, I was still devastated from the breakup with Slick Willie. Like, I was still not over it. I was still like, maybe I got over it in 2017, maybe. But, from 2013 to 2017, that's like a long time to be sad about a breakup. It's a long time. But yeah, but just now I'm over it. Now I can see clearly. So if you guys are like, well, Jamie, you seem like you're cold-hearted. You seem like you're cutthroat. You're different than us. No. I put my all into anybody who gets into a relationship with me. I give my all, but it's hard to get into if you can get in there. If you're lucky enough to get me to do that, to get into a relationship with you, if you're lucky enough for me to say, okay, I'm willing to do this, I'm ready to do this, then you have me 100%. But you got to get me there first, and that's where people have trouble, because I see right through the bullshit. I'm not putting up with it, not even for a moment. So for those of you that are like, well, Jamie, you're different than us. You're cutthroat. I'm weak when it comes to love. So am I. But I have standards, and there's certain things I won't put up with. So if I see red flags immediately, I'm not going to do it. If I see, I'm a mom. I can't be putting my kids in harm's way. I can't do that. So I have to be picky. But anyway, so just my whole point of telling you guys this stuff is, even if it just seems like a cruel thing or like a sick joke, or like, God, why would you even put me around someone like this for me to open my heart to, just for them to break my heart? Why would you even allow me to go there? Everything happens for a reason. If I wouldn't have had those experiences with the illegal immigrant from El Salvador and then Slick Willie, I would not be able to recognize the warning signs now. There's been a few guys, which I didn't date, or I wouldn't call it dating or anything. I was just talking to, like, on the phone or texting, not meeting up with in person, that I may have gone down into that trap if it wasn't for my life experience with those other two people. I recognized the games. I recognized the BS. So I was like, oh, block and delete, red flag. So I'm grateful that I have that knowledge now. Yeah, it hurt at the time, but I'm grateful that I went through it. I'm grateful that I have that knowledge, so history won't repeat itself. But yeah. All right, JamieZebra23.com to talk for now. Love you long time.